So, for my first video, I want to talk about what I think is the main issue when it comes to. So, in the labor movement right now, there's a real hunger for the concept of a general strike, no matter what country you're in right now. I think that the concept, at least in my experience in the United States, comes down to this: there are different types of worker, and there are different types of harm that they experience in the workplace. And each type of worker experiences different types of harm, which causes a, a difficulty in creating solidarity between one type of worker and another. So it's hard to draw everybody together when they have different experiences. I'm going to get into this more specifics in just a second. So, different types of labor need different types of protection. Let's talk about the different types of labor there is out there. So, you've got blue collar, you've got service workers, and you've got white collar workers. Everybody slots into some one of these or another. Like you've got you can have uh highly skilled blue collar workers, and you can have white collar workers who are making like minimum wage. But the concept is more what kind of effectively what kind of risks they're taking in the workplace and what kind of work because of what kind of work they are doing. So the kind of harm that the employers can cause the workers comes down to these three. There's financial harm. So each type of worker experiences stuff like wage theft and the worker or the employer's desperate attempts to keep benefits away from workers. Even even the best employers really don't want to give benefits to workers. Sometimes they just feel like they need to, and I think we all know that. There's social and emotional harm. This can come down to power dynamics with management, as well as isms and phobias with oppressor groups and oppressed people, as well as the stress of control that others have over your career and finances. This comes into things with more like certain classes and others, but it's more the concept of the stress that makes you wonder if you should be in a job or not. Um, then there's the question of physical harm. Some groups have this more than others. So this comes down to literal physical risks at work, whether or not that's the environment, PPE, literal physical risks, and maintaining basic needs such as, are you provided with healthcare? Do you have sick pay? Are you forced to go to work in order to pay for food and housing? That kind of thing. How likely are you to physically risk your life in the workplace in order to pay for everything that you need? That's physical harm. So, blue collar workers experience all of these types of harm. Obviously, wage theft. When it comes to benefits, it's very difficult to get benefits as a blue collar worker. They try to keep them away from you, because it's really undervalued work. Even the highly skilled stuff, you have to really work for it. Uh, when it comes to social and emotional harm, power dynamics are a big issue because blue collar workers are treated as disposable. So pushing back on management can often just lead to almost being laughed at. Uh, a lot of people in blue collar positions wind up being in the issue of the oppressor in the position of power and the oppressed being out of power, in that dynamic, and it can cause isms and phobia. And if you're lucky, you can sue for that kind of thing, but there are some protections that aren't there. When it comes to the stress of control others have over your career and finances, that's an issue of, I mean, how hard are you going to push back? when you're only making, $14 an hour in like Los Angeles, and you you could try to find another job, but you've already got, you're already settled here, and you really have to like weigh that out. Um that's a huge part of what white collar work is. It's the issue of, I started at the bottom, I'm going to work up to the top. I would just like to go from being entry level to middle class. And I know you could say, boo hoo, like they can't reach middle class while, blue collar workers don't have the amount of PPE they need. But they still need these protections, because if they don't have these protections, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from other isms and phobias and situations for these people. So we shouldn't value uh, necessarily one type of safety over another type of safety. All workers, no matter what which of these groups they're in, deserve to feel financially, socially, emotionally, and physically safe in their jobs, as though they have a future in these jobs where they can continue with this employer and feel comfortable and safe and want to be there. It's as simple as that. And that's something that I think is the crux of the issue when it comes to drawing people into strike, is that a lot of workers don't feel as though it matters whether or not they feel safe in their workplace, because, capitalism has told them that that's not really that important. But those kinds of safeties, the financial, social, emotional, and physical safety, those things are key in quality of life. Going to work and feeling unsafe in any of those ways is going to harm you, and you will come home exhausted, maybe even physically hurt, and or just your brain just roiling with emotional or like emotional or mental stress, because you can't provide, or you're wondering about benefits, or you're sick and you had to go into work, all those things. So all of those things matter, but the question that it comes down to is, how can all of this come together to actually affect anything like a labor movement? And I think this is the key. You can't necessarily easily convince a blue collar worker that the protections that a white collar worker needs are all really that relevant to what they need, and that a white collar worker needs the same that a blue collar worker needs. Trying to create solidarity between people who just need PPE and a safe physical environment, and people who need the emotional safety to believe that they have the ability to advance. Those are two very different types of safety. So creating solidarity is a question of creating solidarity within these distinct groups. Blue collar workers should strike. Blue collar workers should strike either all together or in their distinct occupations, because they have shared experiences. And somebody in an insurance office is going to have incredibly different experiences of an abusive employer than somebody who works in a factory. And trying to convince them that they're the same is a crapshoot at best. So, if you get all of those people who work in a factory together, they'll be able to say, yes, these are the experiences that make me want a better employer. And you can bring them together. And service workers will be like, yes, these are the experiences that make me want to have an employer that treats me better and that gives me what I deserve in the workplace for all of the physical and emotional effort I put into the job. You can draw them all together, but they have to have shared experiences, or you're just telling everybody, look, you're being oppressed. And they will not understand exactly why. Wage theft is too broad a concept. It's too broad a concept to just throw out there and tell everybody you're being oppressed, because everybody will go, I mean, yes, I'm not being paid the amount I deserve, but so what? That's the way things are. That's too broad a concept. What In order to actually affect the labor movement, you need people to understand that the shared experiences of lack of safety at work, whatever type of safety it is, they need to speak about those types of lack of safety with the people who relate to it, and come together based on that shared experience. So I think that's what it comes down to, is we're trying to get people who cannot relate to each other to relate to each other. And that is a lost cause. Focus on distinct occupations or these distinct groups and bring them together. And I think you could even get white collar workers to strike if you got them to understand what it is that's causing them harm in the workplace. That would be a major coup. But these other two, the blue collar and the service workers, they they will not create solidarity amongst each other because the experiences are so different. Solidarity is based on shared experience. So let's bring together people who have shared experience. Otherwise, nobody is going to understand each other. They're going to be speaking past each other, and they're just not going to be interested in this conversation. And that's what we need. Thanks.